Welcome back to another deep dive explainer. Today, we're doing something really fascinating. We are taking a rigorous, highly researched journey into the actual mechanics of deception. If you've ever found yourself wondering exactly how dangerous hidden agendas manage to operate right in plain sight, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to conduct what is essentially a clinical autopsy of manipulation. We'll be breaking down the exact documented psychological patterns used by individuals who are experts at hiding their true nature. And listen, we're going to take our time today. We're unpacking this step by step with complete methodological precision, because the goal here is to give you the tools to spot and dismantle these threats long before they can impact your life or the lives of the people you care about.
The worst betrayal of the millennium. This is actually how victims routinely describe the profound emotional devastation of realizing someone they implicitly trusted was, in reality, harming them. And I want to validate that right out of the gate. The horror of manipulation, that deep, gut-wrenching sense of a quote-unquote spiritual evil or ultimate betrayal, it is very, very real. To the person experiencing it, it literally feels cosmic in scale. But here's the thing. Today, we aren't talking about the supernatural. I'm going to walk you through the very real, documented clinical mechanics behind why it feels this way and show you exactly how these psychological traps are methodically, deliberately constructed from the ground up.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, the illusion of connection. Second, the anatomy of the mask. Third, the architecture of betrayal. Fourth, manipulative conditioning. Fifth, the protector's burden. And finally, number 6, tactical vetting. Let's jump right in.
Starting with Section 1, the illusion of connection and how these curated fictions actually work.
Think about this for a second. Why do we routinely trust curated fictions over verifiable realities? It's a huge question. In our hyper-connected modern world, we naturally want to believe we truly know the people around us. But every single photo, every post, every supposedly spontaneous little story, it's often engineered with highly calculated intent. We are biologically wired for connection. It's human nature. And manipulators know exactly how to exploit that baseline desire. They serve us this beautifully edited highlight reel, right? And it's designed specifically to attract our trust, our affection, and ultimately our unrestricted access. The truth is, the modern digital predator hides in plain sight. Scammers, impersonators, identity thieves, they have literally never had more powerful tools at their fingertips than they do right now, and they operate entirely behind a glowing screen. While they are busy engineering these perfect, incredibly relatable profiles, data brokers are simultaneously harvesting, packaging, and straight up selling your personal life for profit. Your daily habits, your relationships, your home address, it's all just sitting there, available to anyone willing to pay a small fee. This massive structural vulnerability is exactly what allows predators to bypass normal social friction. They can exploit your goodwill with absolute surgical precision because they already know everything about you. Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, Anatomy of the Mask, specifically focusing on the chameleon archetype. This concept of the master shapeshifter perfectly embodies the chameleon archetype. We are talking about individuals who literally conduct methodical reconnaissance on what you want. They will seamlessly adapt their backstory, their expressed personality, sometimes even their physical presentation, just to perfectly mirror your exact desires and your unhealed emotional wounds. By doing this, they create this incredibly powerful, artificial sense of deep connection. Victims of this consistently report feeling like they were uniquely chosen or flawlessly understood by this person. But it's an illusion, guys. It is a highly calculated mask designed from the ground up to completely bypass your critical vetting process. To truly grasp this dynamic, we have to formally define their foundational tactics. And it all starts with love bombing. Now, this isn't just someone being unusually nice or romantic. It's much darker than that. It is the strategic, overwhelming saturation of a target. We're talking extreme charm, excessive flattery, and forced bonding rituals happening at lightning speed. The clinical goal here is very specific. It's to quickly dismantle your psychological boundaries and manufacture a deep, intoxicating sense of dependency. And they do it fast, way before you have the necessary time to critically evaluate exactly who it is you're dealing with. Right after that intense initial love bombing phase, the strategy smoothly shifts to gradual control. And notice the sequence here, because it's absolutely crucial. This systematic tightening happens only after the emotional attachment is firmly secured. That's when the trap slowly, almost invisibly, starts to close. The victim gets subtly manipulated into hiding the new relationship from their friends and family. Why? Because those are the exact protective individuals who would normally analyze the situation objectively and sound the alarm. It is this slow, methodical tightening of influence that's brilliantly designed to feel like a completely natural progression of intimacy to the person caught inside it. Then we have personality switching. And listen, this isn't some supernatural possession. It is a heavily documented clinical behavioral pattern. These individuals will be incredibly polite, maybe even seemingly spiritual or highly intellectual when they're out in public. But behind closed doors, they reveal intense jealousy, rage, and profound cruelty. This stark, terrifying dichotomy is exactly why victims often look back in total shock and say, they weren't like this when we met. And they're right. You didn't fall for the real person. You fell for a carefully calibrated mask that was simply discarded the second they achieved control.
Let's move into Section 3, the architecture of betrayal, where we are going to rigorously deconstruct this trap. We are going to perform a clinical autopsy of a psychological trap right now. Look at how the visceral emotional horror story perfectly aligns with structural clinical reality. When a victim intensely feels like he captures you, clinical psychology actually classifies that as grooming. That feeling of he makes you trust him, that is the direct engineered result of love bombing. When a partner constantly introduces people or situations you hate just to keep you off balance, that's a documented, destabilizing tactic called triangulation. And that terrifying, suffocating feeling of getting brainwashed, where there is no way out, that is the end-stage systemic result of coercive control and total isolation. Mastering this vocabulary is huge. It completely strips the predator of their mystique and exposes exactly what they're doing.
Now, betrayal isn't just one-on-one. Systemic betrayal occurs when a group turns on a visionary leader. And to really preserve the complexity of this topic, we have to look at this. Groups don't typically betray leaders because they suddenly develop complex, dark goals. No, they do it because of immense, unmanaged human psychological pressures. When a leader's vision or generosity sets a really high bar, weaker members of the group experience deep insecurity and inferiority. So what do? They project their own internal failures onto the leader. You add in the toxic, accelerating momentum of groupthink, where one insecure person whispers a complaint and others immediately jump on board just to avoid becoming the target themselves. And you have the precise, verifiable anatomy of systemic group betrayal. It's rooted in envy and fear.
All right, diving into Section 4, the psychology of manipulative conditioning, essentially answering the question, why do we miss the signs? This is absolutely critical to understand. Victims do not fail to see red flags because they are careless or inherently blind. They miss them because their perception is being actively and methodically conditioned. A manipulative individual purposefully normalizes highly unhealthy behavior over a long period of time, so the victim's baseline sense of danger just gets completely dulled. They deliberately disrupt the victim's intuition by manufacturing constant, paralyzing self-doubt. They isolate their target from any outside objective information, and they actively punish any curiosity or critical questions. The victim's inner warning systems are literally being systematically dismantled. So if you've been through this, hear me. It is not foolishness. It is targeted psychological conditioning, plain and simple. This leads us heavily into Section 5, the protector's burden, and what we call the hero's grief. We really must acknowledge a deeply human tragedy here. The protector's burden. Think of the heroic guilt of being the person who actually recognizes the danger early. You see it happening to someone you love, you wait patiently, trying to act with extreme care so you don't push them away, only to have to watch your loved one choose a charming, confident abuser who was just simply faster to act. These are the three core wounds of the protector. The wound of being too late, the wound of being replaced, and not by someone better, but by a meticulously constructed facade, and the devastating, haunting wound of finding out years later the extent to which this person abused and tortured your loved one. It is a profound, incredibly heavy grief, and it's grounded entirely in the harsh realities of these human behavioral patterns. So what is our functional response to all of this? That's Section 6, tactical vetting, defense, and the sheer cost of waiting. First, we've got to rigorously confront the financial reality of finding out too late. $50,000 or more. That is the average, quantifiable financial loss victims suffered due to romantic fraud, hidden debt, and systemic financial manipulation before the deception is finally uncovered. The damage here is entirely tangible. It's mathematically devastating, and honestly, it often takes decades to unravel financially. But obviously, the cost goes way beyond the financial ruin. Look at this staggering timeline. 3 to 5 years. This number represents the typical active, clinical healing work required just for emotional and psychological recovery from profound betrayal trauma. The psychological damage radiates outward.
It severely impacts your mental health, your professional reputation, and your fundamental family bonds long after the manipulator has left the picture.
And if you think this couldn't happen to you, look at the statistical reality of this threat. Roughly 1 in 3 adults will encounter a deceptive romantic partner or a highly fraudulent individual in their lifetime. 1 in 3? This data fundamentally proves that this threat isn't some rare freak anomaly. It is a universal, statistically probable danger, which means it requires serious, proactive preparation from every single one of us. Let me be clear. Vetting is not paranoia. It is prudence. It is protective love in action. Anyone seeking close, vulnerable access to you or your family deserves unapologetic scrutiny. So here are your non-negotiable rules for modern safety. Verify before you trust. Always. Guard your sensitive information fiercely. Trust your gut completely. If a backstory constantly shifts or just lacks verifiable detail, disconnect immediately. And finally, protect your circle by actively sharing these principles. Make rigorous verification a routine baseline in your life, not just a panicked reaction when things go wrong.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. If deception thrives in the dark, what hidden truths is your polite silence currently protecting? We routinely just assume a clean presentation equals a clean past, but the most dangerous people rarely announce their intentions. You have to stop letting social politeness override your deeply ingrained protective instincts. Start demanding absolute transparency and start actively investigating the narratives around you today. Your safety and the vital safety of those you love is ultimately your responsibility. Stay vigilant, never stop verifying, and thank you for joining me on this explainer.